Hello, my name is Leonora Buskin and welcome to the Heartful Evaluation webinar series. Remember the art in Heartful because this series is all about how art is an effective evaluation and assessment tool for arts and cultural workers, arts educators, and art program coordinators, as well as anyone who deals with the development and delivery of educational programming or a curriculum that incorporates the arts, whether it be in a formal or informal educational setting. This first webinar highlights my educational philosophy in connection to the rest of the series. The agenda of this first webinar will cover the following: an introduction of who I am through a brief speaker biography, followed by covering the webinar series' primary goal and primary objectives. One of the key topics to be covered is the purpose of evaluating an arts-based program. What benefits and use does the evaluation process provide? I will also quickly review a listing of future webinar topics, a total of 3, and proceeding forward with an overview of experiential and sensory-based learning with a special focus on the arts. Before proceeding further with this webinar, I will take the time to share my background. I am a certified educator with a specialization in arts and social science education. I have over 8 years of experience as an arts educator, and I have delivered educational arts programming to various age groups from toddlers to seniors. My art workshops have taken place and continue to take place in various formal and informal educational settings, including public schools, private schools, camps, community centers, and festivals. I am also the former festival assistant of 3 notable Toronto-based festivals. One is known as the largest showcase of Jewish arts and culture in North America and attracts a multicultural audience of over 80,000 throughout the Greater Toronto Area. This festival is known as Harbourfront Centre's Ashkenaz Festival, primarily taking place at the Harbourfront Centre in downtown Toronto, but also in different parts of York Region in the Canadian province of Ontario. I'm also the former festival assistant of 2 of Melasman Square's summer festivals in North York of Toronto, the Kultura Festival and Sunday Serenades, presented by local arts service organization North York Arts. I am additionally responsible for developing the first ever market research study for local arts service organization East End Arts. East End Arts is a nonprofit local arts service organization incubated by the City of Toronto to address the needs of the art community in East York and East Toronto. As part of the study, I researched the program preferences and art experiences of East End's arts audience-based. My experiences in the arts and culture sector have demonstrated to me how the arts make a positive impact on communities and individuals. This is why I've become a strong believer that the arts serve as a means of self-expression, experiential learning, cultural programming, and community building. The purpose of this series is to provide the tools that effectively measure the impact of arts-based programs through both traditional evaluation methods as well as innovative arts-based assessment tools. The primary goal of the Heartful Evaluation series is to improve awareness of effective traditional and innovative arts-based assessment tools for the evaluation of arts-based programs. The 2 primary objectives behind the development and release of the Heartful Evaluation webinar series are as follows. The first objective is to increase awareness and accessibility of effective traditional evaluation methods for arts-based programs. The second objective is to increase awareness of how art can be used as an assessment tool for the evaluation of art programs, as well as other diverse educational programs that incorporate the arts. Why employ evaluation methods to program design? I've included a link to a helpful document in the description below that provides a listing of reasons as to why it is beneficial to evaluate a program. The document is titled Getting Started with Program Evaluation, a Guide for Arts Organizations. It was developed by Georgia Council for the Arts and the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies in the United States. I feel the reasons provided in the document are equally relevant to Canadian-based arts and cultural organizations. Reasons for employing program evaluation methods are provided on page 2 of the document. The reasons include finding effective ways to improve the program's delivery and marketing, as well as finding effective ways to communicate to funders and donors the positive impact of the program, demonstrating a sense of stewardship through documenting accountable use of money, whether from tax dollars, grants, or donations, increased engagement by engaging participants in the evaluation process and demonstrating the value of their feedback, helping communities recognize the impact of the arts, as well as making the case for the need of more resources for future programming. By following the Heartful Evaluation webinar series, you will learn how to employ traditional and innovative evaluation methods to effectively assess program design and delivery. The webinar series will comprise of 4 episodes, each covering a different topic. The date of release for each episode are listed on the current slide. The topics to be covered are as follows. This episode will cover the introduction with a focus on the key question, why use art as a teaching, programming, and evaluation tool? The second episode will cover the logic model framework, a traditional evaluation approach often utilizing surveys to gather qualitative and quantitative data. Its scheduled release is March 18, 2019. The third episode will cover an innovative observational assessment method known as arts-informed evaluation with a focus on how art can be used as an assessment tool. Its scheduled release date is March 25, 2019. The last episode will cover the aesthetic attributes framework with a focus on methods used to incorporate arts-informed evaluation. Its scheduled release date is April 5th, 2019. This first webinar focuses in on the following question: why use art as a teaching, programming, and evaluation tool? My answer would be that any professional who aims to ensure or improve engagement levels in an educational program benefits from understanding how art engages audiences. Art is essentially a tool for engagement in learning, engagement in an educational program, and engagement of participants in the assessment of an educational program. This webinar will highlight the fact that art making and participation is experiential in nature and sensory-based. Experiential and sensory-based are qualities that make educational programming engaging to participants, and engagement results in memorable experiences, which improves the recall of information taught during those experiences. Here, I will bring my own personal educational philosophy as it directly touches upon the theme of engagement. As an educator, I aim to develop and deliver experiential learning opportunities that allow participants to take a central role in their learning experiences. Let's break this statement down into 2 key concepts in the form of questions. 1. What is experiential learning? And 2. What does it mean to take a central role in one's learning experiences? Experiential learning is a concept heavily discussed in the museum and educational fields. The simplest definition for the term would be learning through experience. It's as simple as that. Educators invested in experiential learning approach the design of their programs and lessons around creating experiences for their students or participants. These experiences are intended to result in the learning and application of information. Experiential learning differs from a lecture-based approach where there is normally little shared dialogue between teacher and student, as well as student and fellow classmates. With traditional lecturing, the student does not normally take a central role in the teaching and learning experience because they have little to no voice and therefore little to no active involvement that resonates with them as a memorable experience. My educational philosophy is highly influenced by the philosopher John Dewey, who released publications on his educational philosophy from the late 19th century to the early 20th century. His often quoted saying, "Give the pupils something to do, not something to learn, and the doing is of such a nature as to demand thinking. Learning naturally results." This statement is quoted directly from his publication titled Democracy in Education. He is a pioneer of progressive education, and his writings emphasize the value of experiential learning. Now that experiential learning has been covered, I'd like to focus on the question, what does it mean to take a central role in one's own learning experience? My answer would be to engage in sensory-based experiences. I would like to refer to Nell Fleming's VAK model as a way to explain how engaging in sensory-based experience allows one to take a central role in one's own learning. The VAK model is the most commonly known model of learning styles. The acronym VAK standing for Visual, Auditory, and Kinesthetic. These learning styles are sensory-based. Describing a student as a visual learner is to say that the student learns best from working with visuals. The VAK model describes an auditory learner as an individual who learns best from listening, and a kinesthetic learner as someone who learns best from doing and creating. Whenever I took a short quiz designed to determine the quiz taker's learning style, I would always receive the result visual learner, which makes sense since I learn well from observing visuals, diagrams, and illustrations. I like to take notes. I always use a visual tracker like a calendar to keep track of dates and time, and I always excelled in visual arts classes throughout my youth. What I would like to argue is that while everyone has their own unique strengths, I would like to argue that all students possess each of the three learning styles: auditory, kinesthetic, and visual. And each individual student should not necessarily be categorized as exclusively one type of learner. As long as one can listen, see, and do, these are all ways to engage that learner. The more sensory experiences you bring into a program or lesson, the more engaged the participant or student will be. If a student is looking at visuals, listening to an instructor's explanations, and then the participant or student applies information by creating something, more and more of the student's senses have been activated in the process of learning information. The participant takes on a more central role in learning, in the learning experience, because more of the participants' senses have been activated simultaneously. So I'd argue that different learning styles should not only be considered and incorporated in order to engage different types of learners in a room, but also to provide enhanced engagement for each individual learner as much as possible by activating their different senses simultaneously. If an instructor is simply talking and a student is not taking part in the dialogue or experience, it makes sense that a student may start to tune out because they are essentially not involved in the lesson and may even feel like they are not there, like they are irrelevant to the experience. They have no say or contribution to it, and the experience may end up feeling irrelevant to them altogether. The less of the senses that are used, the less the student is engaged and made a part of that experience. Often kids ask their students, especially when they don't want to do a particular set of work, "Why do I need to learn this?" While growing up as a kid, I commonly heard fellow classmates say to our teachers, "I will never use this kind of math, so I don't need to learn it." Individuals are motivated to learn when they see a connection to the material being taught and to their everyday experiences. Such material would have been viewed as worth learning because it is demonstrated to have relevance to students or participants' everyday life, whether for the present time or the future. When a participant or a student becomes involved actively in a learning experience through sensory-based engagement, their direct involvement shows them how the experience can be made directly relevant to their lives. The experience becomes memorable because they are engaged. They remember a moment in time when they heard, saw, and did something as a way of learning. The hope is that they recall what they learned better because of the experiential sensory-based approach and transfer that knowledge to their everyday lives. By making teaching and learning experiential in nature, students and participants are demonstrated with how the material and information taught can be used. Psychological-based research has shown that one is more likely to recall and use information when the learning of information took place in a similar type of situation. This phenomenon is known as state-dependent memory or state-dependent learning. When a student or program participant applies information taught to a real-life situation, learning has taken place. The student or participant has shown the ability to both recall the information and use the information, which demonstrates the student's learning and understanding. What connection does experiential sensory-based education have to arts education and programming? Art is an engagement tool because the arts are both sensory-based and experiential. By engaging in art making, participants are hearing, seeing, and doing. That means that all the learning styles from the VAK model are being employed: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. Whether it be playing a musical instrument or creating a visual artwork, dancing, or acting, engagement is often taking place by incorporating all three learning styles. A visual arts student is listening to instruction, observing an instructor's demonstrations, or working from reference images, creating with the hands, and reflecting upon the work being created. When participants or students are taking on a more direct central role in a learning experience, the information and skills taught becomes memorable because the information is linked to a moment in time. By memorable, I mean the information and skills taught are recalled or used later on, becoming transferable skills and knowledge applicable to everyday situations. When art making becomes a memorable experience that resonates with participants, it makes an impact. Impact meaning having a profound effect on participants. Additionally, when art is used as an assessment tool, program participants take on a more direct central role in the evaluation of the program, as their experiences and perspectives are documented as part of the evaluation process. This will be further covered in episodes 3 and 4, covering the arts-informed evaluation method and the aesthetics attributes framework. The next 3 episodes will cover assessment tools, both traditional and arts-based, that help to effectively evaluate the impact of an art program or an educational program that incorporates art making. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for next week's episode on the Logic Model Framework, a traditional evaluation approach that gathers and analyzes quantitative and qualitative data to measure impact.